Hi, everybody. My name is Erica Miller. Welcome to People from Cleveland Are Dope. Today's interview features Mr. Mike Chapman. Currently, Mike is a senior partner and media and entertainment practice leader at Kearney, a global management consulting firm. Mike has decades of consulting experience across industries such as media, entertainment, telecommunications, to name a few. He previously worked as a managing director at Accenture, formerly known as Anderson Consulting. Early on, Mike made his mark on the music industry as a producer, engineer, and songwriter. He was educated in Cleveland, Ohio, from Shaker Heights High School through graduate school at Case Western Reserve University. For those of a certain age, you may remember Mike from his days as a DJ on Cleveland radio stations, Power 108 WDMT and 93 FM WZAK. Mike is here with us today to talk about all of that. Mike, welcome to People from Cleveland Are Dope, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Erica. I'm so glad to be here. Cleveland's always home to me, and anything I can always do to stay connected with my hometown, happy to do.
Good, good. So, um, tell us a little bit about what neighborhood you're from.
Well, I am a original Shaker Heights, Ohio, uh, you know, lifetime person, in the sense that I grew up there. I came up there from elementary school all the way to Shaker Heights High School, class of '84, and spent, even after I graduated from high school, still spent most of my time in Cleveland until probably about the year 2000. So I came up in the Cleveland area. A lot of people knew me because I was not just hanging out at Shaker Heights, but I was at Warrensville, Cleveland Heights, Shaw. I was all over the place. Any place that had a party going at that time, I was there.
Okay, so you went to Shaker Heights High School, and I heard you were in a band when you were in high
Well,
school. Is that correct?
yeah, so as you alluded to in my intro, before I became a corporate strategist, I was a musician. I was always a songwriter, producer, part of bands, engineering, etc. And I was in this band starting in high school. It was called Synergy, and it was actually four of us in high school together. And we performed. We actually had our first performance in the Shaw High School talent show, and we performed as a group there. And we actually played Trans Europe Express and tore the house down. We
Oh
didn't
my
win
God.
though. We didn't win the Shaw talent show. I thought we were going to get it, but we didn't get it. But from there, we ended up putting together what became my first record at 16 years old. It was a record called Project 5. It was like an electro dance, planet rock type song. A regional hit, was played on all the local radio stations at the time, and even got played in other parts of the country and around the world. So I started off as a band in the band, and loved music. Actually, played all the brasses but the trombone. Played the piano, keyboards, and drums and percussion growing up.
Wow. Did you take formal lessons?
Pretty much in high school, you play, you have rehearsals like every week. You take band as part of your classes, and I know we're going to talk about my journey, but originally I started on a journey to become audio recording major, which is a music degree and electrical engineering degree. So yes, you have to major in music to get an audio recording degree. And I played, I took lessons at home, took lessons formally through the school, and continued playing instruments through my professional career in the music industry.
So, what were some of the spots you used to hang out at when you were growing up in Cleveland?
Oh my God. Well, I was a DJ. So I started off as a street jock. And so to take people back, I was a street jock back in the days when Rap and Scratch was just coming to Cleveland, Ohio. So I came up right after Cochise rocked the FM 108 WDMT club style. He won that award. After that, I was out there DJing with John, with Cochise, Johnny O, and the Sorcerer Crew, DJ Hawk, DJ Can. There were so many of these DJs back in Cleveland. You might remember the late Silver B
Of
from East
course.
Cleveland. Yeah, that was my guy. And I did a lot of the community festivals. So like the Glenville Festival, the East Cleveland Festival right there, right by Lee Road in Euclid where it met. I did the Luke Easter Park festivals, Carouge Park festivals. So I did a lot of the Cleveland festivals, but I also did stuff in the suburbs too. So I DJ'd in Shaker Heights, Warrensville Heights, Cleveland Heights, Bedford. So I hung out all over the city of Cleveland, even in the flats. One other story to tell you about, I also DJ'd at the old United States of America. So if you remember that, I did that for a few years as well. So pretty much I saw the whole city of Cleveland through the lens of a DJ
Mm.
and was really able to kind of see all parts of Cleveland, Akron, Canton, and Elyria. A DJ just gave me the visibility to so much of the greater Cleveland, Northeast Ohio area. And I was
Mm.
blessed to be able to do that.
So, you graduated from Shaker, and what did you do after that?
So after I graduated high school, I went to Ohio State. And I ended up doing 2 years at Ohio State. And while I was at Ohio State, I did two significant things. One, I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and special shout
Shout
out to my
out to the, go ahead.
yeah, special shout out to my fraternity brother Tim Woods who connected us. Tim, we pledged at different chapters, but we go way back, have that Cleveland connection. So I pledged Kappa in my freshman year, might I say. So I was out there one club.
Wow.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And the other thing I did, I produced MC Chill. So MC Chill was Cleveland's first rapper to have a national record deal in the city of Cleveland, first rapper to have a Billboard charting hit. So I wrote and produced his album along with a few others on select songs, engineered a lot of it. And, Chill to this day continues to be known throughout the world as, one of Cleveland's hottest rappers and the first rapper. And we had the fortune of going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inauguration when it first opened, because some of Chill's paraphernalia and our album was actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame rap exhibit for a while. And the other thing is we both were featured in Legends of the Land 216, the hip hop documentary, which just started airing, with the 50th anniversary of hip hop. J. Cool put that together, done a fabulous job there. And I was actually in the first 3 episodes of Legends of the Land. And actually, they're doing an episode specifically on me and what I did in the hip hop community in Cleveland back in the day.
Oh, we definitely have to watch out for that. That's incredible. You mean to tell me you had something to do with Freddie's ill and he's after Chill?
I was one of those early hip hop heads, starting off doing master mixes for FM 108 WDMT. I mixed a lot of hip hop records of national artists, Fly Girl with the Boogie Boys, Rock Box with Run DMC, You Ain't Fresh with the Boogie Boys. I can go down the list. There's just so many records that I started off as I moved from a DJ into a remixer and mixer, and then continued on from there to actually producing records. But again, it all started in Cleveland, Ohio. It all started in the basement of my house in Shaker Heights, Ohio, where I had Nice Sound Studios. And there were just so many records that were done in that basement. Coach East, I'm Telling It All. was recorded and mixed in my basement in Shaker Heights.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can go down the list. The Brothers for the Struggle, just so many
Oh my
different records.
gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a throwback name. I haven't heard that.
Yes.
Woo. Wow, that's bringing back so many good memories. Like really, really good memories of Cleveland radio growing up. Like that was everything for us.
Oh, I loved radio then. I mean, back then, because I had a show, it was Mike Chapman and the Doctor, and the Doctor was a guy from Warrensville. So we partnered up and we were doing the mixes together. And that went so well on WDMT that they ended up giving us our own show. And they ended up letting us take over the radio station on holidays and for our own show. And it was one of the highest rated weekend shows. And we would just literally take over the radio station, play what we wanted.
Wow.
This is when radio was truly free. You could play what you wanted. It wasn't all
Hmm.
pre-programmed from a corporate office. And we would just play the music that we wanted to play. We put people calling in from different parts of the city on the air, saying shout outs to their family and friends. I mean, that was radio. And I love those times. And, did that at FM 108 WDMT. Dean Rufus gave me the shot there. And then Lynn Tolliver ultimately gave me a shot over at 93 FM WZAK doing something similar.
Wow. Rest in peace, Lynn Tolliver.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you go to Ohio State, you start um, mixing, producing. Um, what happens next?
Well, it's interesting. So I get to Ohio State, I'm doing music, and obviously still in class and still part of Kappa. And, when I went in the door to Ohio State, I started down this path of audio recording. So at the time, Ohio State, to get an audio recording degree, bachelor's degree, you needed, it was a double major. So it was a music degree and it was electrical engineering degree. So when you get a
Oh,
music
wow.
degree, it's standard classical music, electronic music, and audio recording classes. But electrical engineering is hardcore electrical engineering. And that part I couldn't absorb. And God bless those who are out there doing double E. It's a very tough major, very critical role to our economy. But I couldn't handle it. So I ended up changing from an audio recording degree and I started focusing on business.
Hmm.
And so I changed my major to business and I really started reorienting my classes towards business and understanding everything from business math, business law, things like that. So I did 2 years at Ohio State, as I told you. I ended up getting asked to come back to Cleveland. And so I was back in Cleveland and I started going to Cleveland State. And I was on the radio then and still doing music, everything I talked about earlier in hip hop. Well, what was interesting is back then, and some of you might remember this, WDMT decided to change formats. So they went from an urban station overnight to a rock top 40 station. And it was
Hmm.
really, really interesting because people didn't understand that because WDMT at the time was, one of the top stations. It's pretty much the fight was between WDMT and 93 FM WZAK. And they would go back and forth in the ratings. And ZAK tended to top WDMT slightly. But when you looked at the business of radio, um, when you looked at the advertising business, which is how radio stations make money, it's their advertising. At that time, out of every dollar spent on advertising, it was less than a nickel was spent on Black or urban radio stations. So the owners of WDMT at the time felt like, look, we could be a number 10th or 10th place station in the Cleveland market and still make more money on advertising than being a number one or number two urban station in Cleveland. So they ultimately changed it over, and changed, I think it was WENZ or I can't remember the call letters, but overnight, all of us were just told, Lady Skill was there at the time, Dean Rufus, Rod C,
Hmm.
Ellis Moore. There was all of us that were DJs. at WDMT, just next day they're playing rock music, and I had to go
Right.
pick up all my crates of records from the radio station. So yeah, at the time, my rationale for coming back to Cleveland to go to school, finish my degree, and be on the radio got shattered. And luckily, again, Lynn Tolliver moved me over to WZAK pretty quickly in a slightly different role. But I was still down this path of school, a little bit less in radio, and still doing music, still dabbling in the music industry.
Mm-hmm. So you're still dabbling in the music industry. You're at Cleveland State, but now you're moving towards the business of music.
Yeah, so there was a gentleman that was in my high school band at the time, named Trent Thomas, and he and I had stayed connected even after the band broke up in high school, and we were the ones we worked on MC Chill album, we worked on some other things, and so we were continuing to pursue our education and try to get discovered in the music business. So we ended up getting discovered by Warner Brothers Music, Warner Chappell Music at the time, while we were still in Cleveland. And so overnight, we went from these local producers, songwriters, to being plugged into the national, record business. We're signed out of LA. We're producing, named acts. Our first act that we produced was Atlantic Star. So we were on the Masterpiece album. So and that started a chain of R&B and hip hop projects I worked on, and some of them you could see behind me, the different records and awards. And I got Chill's album to my left as well. But really, once we got propelled into Warner Brothers, it just kind of changed the game for us. And now we were national producers. We produced songs like Silk, I Can Go Deep, for the Low Down Dirty Shame soundtrack. We did Janae, Shame. We did a group called Bonjour, Superficial Love, which was top 20. We were plugged in. And, music, I tell people, you go from nothing, just trying to get on. And if you hit those right, everything aligns correctly, you can go overnight to instant success. And so we went from overnight to, success. And it was really good for us at the time. And at the same time, Gerald Levert and Trouble Productions was having their success with the Leverts, with the Rude Boys, with Men at Large, One of the Girls. We worked on that album as well. It was like just Cleveland, kind of come up of artists that was happening at the time. This is the
Sure.
90s now. And we were glad to be a part of that. So really enjoyed that. And, continued to push further into the music industry, built a studio downtown. And while we were doing, obviously, the R&B records, I was still doing engineering and mixing of a lot of hip hop artists in Cleveland.
Wow. Okay, so it's pretty incredible for people from Cleveland to get on in that way. So how did that change your life? Like you had to be like awestruck by all of this that was happening to you. Um, did your family treat you different? Did your friends treat you differently?
Well, it's a great question. And, it's interesting because we went from two guys from Shaker Heights. And I remember when we landed in LAX, our first trip after we signed with Warner Brothers, LAX. And, immediately it was like, we had this Hollywood lifestyle. They got us a drop top convertible car that we was, rolling in while we was in LA. They had us on all kinds of sets. Like we were going to Arsenio Hall show. We were hanging in Hollywood Hills with actors and actresses, movie stars, like at parties. We were having lunch and dinners with some of the top industry executives at the time. And this was like overnight, boom, like it's almost like a dream. You wake up and now you're Mike Chapman with Warner Brothers Music. And it's like all of a sudden you're in this system, and it was pretty incredible. to be in that system there and meeting all these people that I'd either read about in Billboard or seen on TV or heard about, to be actually sitting across the table from them or meeting them or at the club with Bill Bellamy and BBD and, Johnny Gill or whoever. It was pretty incredible to go overnight to that type of environment. In terms of my family, my family had always kind of been there. My family is a very musical family. My sister Kelly Chapman, she was a gospel singer. She had records out, performed at the State Theater. My sister Tracy, who's the youngest of the two, she left Ohio and became a Broadway musical star. She did The Lion King and Tommy and How to Succeed in Business with Matthew Broderick and Into the Woods with Vanessa Williams and, just others. So we were a creative family by design. We all kind of, went different ways about it. But at the end of the day, I think we all kind of supported each other's endeavors, and we all had a different level of success, and and it was good. So, I think, when I think about the music industry, my mom, who's passed, but she was always supportive, let me have a studio in the basement when I was living with her. So she always supported, even though we were playing music till 3, 4 in the morning, she was supportive of that. I think my dad, it took him a second to get on board. I think when one of my songs was on the radio and he was at the golf course with his buddies and it came on the radio, then I think he clicked who his son was. So it took him a second to kind of, get there, but he got there, and yeah. So we always kept Cleveland as kind of our center. Even though I was signed out of LA and we did a lot of work in LA or New York, depending on if it was like for an album or it was for TV or film. We always stayed in Cleveland. We lived in Cleveland. We said we're going to stay in Cleveland. We built our facility in Cleveland. So we always had that attachment to Cleveland that allowed us to kind of stay grounded, versus going to LA or New York or places like that. So that was always good for us. Now later in life, what did I do? I moved to New York. We'll have to talk about that. But I stayed in Cleveland for quite a long time, even through grad school, and so I definitely kept my connections to Cleveland.
So at some point you began a transition more onto the business side of things. So tell us about that, how that happened.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So, I tell anybody that wants to do a creative career, whether it's music or arts or anything, acting, these businesses are predicated a lot on talent and a lot on luck. And those things have to come together, okay, for you to be successful. So, I was lucky in the sense that, I got discovered and, my music was heard. We got out the basement. We got onto radio around the world and video, MTV, VH1, BET. Not everybody has that luxury. And so, music for some can be an industry where you just, you keep pushing and nothing ever happens. You never make it. Your music never, leaves your house. It's on your own devices.
Yeah.
And even for those who do make it, it is really what I tell people, kind of a rags to riches to rags business. You're not making money. You're just trying to get discovered. You get discovered, you have hits, then all of a sudden everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants to be involved with you. But, you're like the flavor of the week, and then all of a sudden the times change, the people change, the taste change, and then people go gravitate to someone else. Now, the fortunate thing is I was lucky enough to be with Warner Brothers for over 7 years, which is a long time to be in the system, so to speak, because most artists last about 18 to 24 months. They come out, you hear of them, 18, 24 months, you don't hear anything more about them. That's how most artists are. I did it with the majors over 7 years, and independently, I did it before and after that for, probably another 10 years. Even while I was in school, I was doing it. And so I was fortunate enough to to get to a place where I achieved a lot with music, but at the same time figured out I had to do something else long term if I want to really kind of have the lifestyle that I want to have long term. So at the time, I'm still in school. I didn't even know what management consulting was at the time. Someone was telling me what they did and how good of a career it was. And I was like, oh well, I got to do that. And I was like, well, what do you need to do that? And they were telling me basically they had an MBA, and this is what they focused on. I was like, oh, I guess I got to go get one of those. So it was literally that simple that it clicked for me that I need to kind of reinvent myself, transform. So obviously I graduated from Cleveland State, got a bachelor's there, and went to Case Western Reserve University, Weatherhead School of Management. And
My
so
alma mater.
that's your, oh, wonderful. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, I went to Case Western Reserve for undergrad, and I
Okay.
went to Cleveland State for law school.
Wow. So we did the flip.
Did the opposite. That's right.
Okay. Well, that's incredible. Yeah. Marshall School of Law. Okay. Um, yeah. So and one thing about me, I've always tried to be this person of first, and even in the music business, we were like, first people from, Shaker to really do some big things in the music industry, myself and Trent Thomas. And so when I went to Case, um, they had theoretically created an opportunity where you could do 2 master's degrees in 2 years.
Mm.
Nobody had ever done it. And so I said, well, hey, I want to do that. How does that work? And it's time to say, well, nobody's ever actually done this. But in theory, if you have this many credits from this and this many credits from that, you can graduate with 2 master's degrees. Basically, it was a year and a half. Um, and so I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So my whole thing was I need to go get an MBA. And I got my MBA with concentrations in banking and finance and management policy and strategy, because those lend themselves towards management consulting. Keep in mind, at this time, I'm studying what does a management consultant do? What do they look like? What do they know?
Mhm.
What do I need to learn while I'm in school? So that was my primary degree. But I was also cognizant of the fact that I'm coming from the music business. And a lot of people that go to business school, are coming from, these blue chip companies. They work there 3 to 5 years after undergrad, to get their beginning business skills, and they go to get their MBA to top that off and then go to do bigger and better things. I didn't have that. I was a music guy.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, I'm going to go get another master's in technology, because I know if I have a degree in technology, I can always get a job. So literally that was my secondary. So I did a master's of science and management information systems. And I knew I could always get a job if I couldn't do what I wanted to do in consulting on the business consulting side. I'll find a job in technology. And interestingly enough, while I was at Case, I ended up getting an internship with Oracle Corporation, so I was at Case and, doing a part-time internship at Oracle. So I was getting my technology chops in with Oracle, kind of in a sales consulting internship, which is very interesting. Oracle, this is way before where they are now. Humongous company now, just really probably quadrupled in size and scale since I was there. So I was doing that, but I had this dream to do strategy consulting. And if you don't know what strategy consulting is, it is the top tier type of consulting in the world. It's really where you are working with senior management, the boards of directors of companies, working on their most strategic issues, charting the future of the company, doing mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, doing large scale business transformations, changing the company. And so that type of consulting typically was relegated to a small set of very high performing individuals coming out of business school, typically out of your top business schools, Harvard, Wharton,
Sure.
Stanford, those schools at the time. And when I started, it was very pedigree. Like if you weren't in one of those five, it was almost impossible to get in the door in a top tier strategy consulting firm. So I knew I was going to have to work harder. And again, as a person of first, as I told you earlier, I started this endeavor to figure out how do I get into a strategy consulting firm. So I had the fortunate pleasure of being connected through Case to a gentleman named Andrew Jackson. So Andrew Jackson's a Clevelander. He was the second Black partner in Anderson Consulting. So, and keep in mind, we're talking, this is 1998, and he was the number 2 partner, so it just shows you there wasn't a lot of Black partners even that soon years ago.
Right.
And he was the second Black partner. I got connected to him. He was in a different part of Anderson Consulting. Now he was running stuff where he was at, but he wasn't in the strategy consulting part of Anderson Consulting, because again, it was a very exclusive part, almost run like a separate business. So we were at the National Black MBA conference. We were in Detroit. And I was up there just like, it was before the end of my first year at Case. And, I was seeking an internship like a lot of students. And Andrew was there, and he said, you should come to the Anderson Consulting Hospitality Suite. I said, I'll introduce you to some people. So basically, I get there, and, Andrew, does his thing, keeps his promises, and introduces me to some people who were at the time in Anderson Consulting Strategic Services, which was its, blue chip strategy consulting division. And I remember I'm in the hospitality suite. I have a rum, like a lot of students, chit chatting. And I remember it was really interesting because I'm talking to them about my interest in consulting, strategy consulting. And I remember there was a woman there that kind of like, looked me down. And, once she found out I didn't go to Harvard, kind of was like, I remember her exact words. She said, we find that students that don't come from, these top schools are quantitatively deficient. Literally what she told me right then and there. And I'm like, okay. And I keep pushing her. And there was at the time, a guy who was a senior manager, and there was a partner there from Anderson Consulting Strategic Service. I keep telling them, why I think I'm good. I have my story together. And so finally, the guy says, Mike, you say you want to be a strategy consultant. Well, let's see how good you are. And so he gives me what's called a case interview. And case interviews, if you've never done them, they're like experiential interviews. They're like a business problem. And he throws right in the suite while I got a Bacardi and Coke in my hand, a case interview at me. And I'm right there with him. I'm like, yeah, this is what I look at. These are questions I'd ask this, that. And I think this is where the problem is, and blah, blah, blah. And so they were silent, and they looked at each other, and then basically they stepped away and said, stay right there. Then they came back and they said, how can we get in touch with you? And you got to remember, this is before the days of massive cell phones and all this. I was staying in
Yes.
some podunk hotel, bunked up with some other business school students, because we that's how you did it back in school. You 3, 4 deep in the
Yeah.
room. So he basically asked for where I'm staying. I tell him the hotel. I give him the number, the room number, all this. And I had a business school business card I gave him. So don't you know, I got back to that hotel room about 11:30 at night, and there was a message for me, and it was from Anderson Consulting, said, we want to interview you tomorrow. So, yeah, so I'm like, wow. So I went from unknown, trying to get in from, a tier 2 school to, okay, now I'm in interview. So I remember getting in that interview, and it was with a guy, Jeff Blackman. I remember he was another principal at the time. And he was like, kind of like, Mike, hey, they told me to interview you. I don't know quite what to do with you, because they were there looking for full-time associates as strategy consultants. They weren't there looking for interns. And, they basically were just told, hey, you need to interview this guy. So anyway, I went through the interview. I met a guy who was the managing partner of a certain part of Anderson Consulting Strategic Services. And, a guy named Scott Popolo, I still stay in touch with him to this day. And he said, Mike, well, I'm going to tell you, you did good in the interview, but we reserve our internships as marketing tools for our top schools. So I don't know what's going to happen. I have to go get permission. And, he said, just hang tight. You're not going to hear from me for about 90 days. So I didn't hear nothing. So then in January, I get a call and they say, Mike, we want to put you through the final rounds for an internship, and this is when you did back-to-back case interviews, and you went through a whole process. At the time, I think it was 8 to 12 interviews. There was a lot of interviews. But they
Oh,
said, we're going to bring you to Harvard Business School to interview. So we'll fly you up there. You're going to interview with the HBS students. So I'm going to tell you, Erica, I was like Rocky back here at Case. I'm training, I'm like getting Case interviews thrown at me. I'm like, I feel like I was running up them steps in Philly. I was like just ready for it. I was like, I'm gonna do this. And the whole school was watching this. So basically I flew up to Harvard. And I remember I'm sitting in the room. Again, I'm the only student there that's getting interviewed that's not from Harvard. And I'm sitting next to the creator of iVillage. This is the .com days. She founded iVillage. Guy next to me, 27 years old. He had 7 patents. Guy over there had, started up some other thing. Another person over there was son of some major prime minister. I mean, it was just like this really, intimidating group. And here me, Mike Chapman from Case Western Reserve University. And so I went into this whole interview process like, okay, I'm just going to do it. So guy threw the first case interview at me. I was like, I tore down. I was like, okay, what's next? Then second guy gave me an interview, knocked it out the park. So then the third interview was with a partner. And he came and said, Mike, look, I'm not going to give you a case interview. I already know you're a smart guy. I want to understand what's going to take to get you to join Anderson Consulting. So we just talked for the
uh-huh.
third interview, and he was just trying to sell me to join. And then I had one more interview with another partner, and he did kind of the same thing. So they called me that night and said, Mike, we'd love to offer you a summer internship at Anderson Consulting Strategic Services. So I was the first student in the history of Anderson Strat. We called it Anderson Strat for short. That wasn't from one of their top 10 business schools to get an internship.
Wow, what an incredible feat. You
Yes.
had to go through a lot to get there, but you were prepared for that moment.
And that's really what it is. And it's not even just for consulting, but if you look at a lot of the careers, very high demand careers, high paying careers, consulting, investment banking, marketing. I don't know in law if they do the same thing or not, but in those type of careers, they're not just asking you, tell me a time when you showed leadership or, the standard questions. They'll throw a few of those in, but they're actually putting you in the shoes of a day-to-day consultant and seeing how you think on the fly and throwing numbers at you with no calculator. And they want to see how you think, how you kind of structure solving the problem. And that's the future of how those careers are going to continue to interview. So I went through all that, went through it successfully, ended up getting an internship. It was me and another guy. It was 2 of us on the project. And interestingly enough, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna be in the music business now. I'm gonna be doing music consulting. What do? They throw me at a pharmaceutical company. So I'm doing drug discovery. I'm like, now I will tell you, I knew nothing about it, but it was really incredible because I'm working with scientists and doctors and business people trying to
Mhm.
figure out kind of how do you get drugs from, compounds all the way to actual drugs in the marketplace and, look at different therapeutic areas. So I became in a summer a pretty well steeped person on how drugs are made in this country, and they ended up giving me an offer full time. So gave me an offer full time. So I only had 1 semester to go. And I remember when I told people the news, I, got the offer, both the internship as well as the full-time offer. I mean, the school just cheered me on. It was a big deal, big deal. And so then I ended up doing my last semester. So, because remember, I had two degrees, 18 months.
Mhm.
And then I moved to New York, the city I said I was never going to live in. I always said I was going to live in Ohio, but I wanted to do that because I wanted to position myself for media and entertainment. So I joined Anderson Consulting Strategic Services in January 2000 as a senior consultant, or associate as they call it. And then basically from there worked my way up to partner. And then I became a managing director. And then I left Accenture in 2020 as a global managing director. And, so I mean, just kind of went from the bottom intern up to a global managing director, pretty significant accomplishment, period, for anybody. Less than 1% of the people that go into consulting get to those levels. And when you think about it as African American, it's even more infinitesimal,
Mm-hmm,
much
mm-hmm.
small to make it to those levels. So that's a little bit about my journey up into Anderson Consulting Accenture.
Okay. So tell the people what a management consultant does.
Yeah, so I think it's one of the greatest careers that you could ever do, especially coming. Um, so a lot of times, you know, my teams are called by senior executives of companies or the board of directors in some cases to look at, from an independent perspective, some of the most challenging business problems that corporations can have. And it's not just big companies, sometimes it's startups, sometimes it's private equity owned or backed companies. Um, and so, if I look at all the companies I've worked with, which is almost every major media company in the US, is some around the world, a lot of the telecommunications companies in the US and Canada, um, and some of the retailers, some of the consumer electronics companies, global from Asia. I've worked with all these companies with, top tier management, helping them think about everything from strategically where should they go, um, helping them think through what should they buy another company or not, or if they've already made the decision to buy this company, how do you put the two companies together? How do you actually bring them together, integrate those companies? If they're a company having profit and loss challenges, not as profitable as they need, sometimes working with them on large scale business transformation programs. So looking at where they can cut costs, where they can reorganize the business or restructure the business to reduce costs. And also looking at entering new markets. I did that with a large scale streaming company that a lot of people have today, and I work with them to identify 7 different international markets where they could launch, and they're in all of them today, doing very well. So it's really looking at the top tier issues that a company or organization faces. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's not a stay-at-home job. I mean, you travel a lot. I mean, Erica, you know this. I was back and forth just trying to get to you. I mean, I was going between New York, LA, Minneapolis, and we finally came together. So you're always on a plane. A little less so in this world of post-pandemic, where companies are a little bit more understanding of remote work. But keep in mind, before that, companies didn't have large remote work. And so I had to fly to the client site every week, and sometimes multiple client sites. And just to give you a benchmark, in 2019, before the pandemic hit, I flew 319,000 miles in 1 year. I was commuting literally between the US and Canada and Brazil and London and Paris and South Africa. I mean, it was literally like that. And so you have to be ready for that lifestyle. And it's a career. It's a very rewarding career, whether you just do it for 3 to 5 years and get the business experience that you use for yourself. Maybe you do something entrepreneurial after you stop consulting, or maybe you go work in industry as a line executive, or you decide to make partner. It's one of those careers where you do it, you learn so much, you learn in dog years. You learn business in dog years. So you're learning for every 3 years, your friend is learning something in business. You're learning that in a year, maybe. It's really accelerated learning, and it sticks with you no matter what you do later in life. But it is a demanding career. It's a well-paying career, um, but it's a very demanding career. It is a career we need more African Americans, frankly. We really do. We've made strides since I started. We have more partners in the profession, but we need more people coming in at the bottom and saying, I want to go into management consulting or strategy consulting and working their way up. So I've been doing it now almost 25 years. I'm now, as you said, a senior partner at Kearney. And at Kearney, I lead the media and entertainment practice. But Kearney has been gracious enough to give me, other responsibilities pretty much around what I want to do. So for example, I said I want to do private equity. So Kearney allows me to do private equity as well. I'm doing consumer electronics still. I find those pockets for me, even as a long-time strategy consultant, that I still feel I could grow into more. And so I tried to embed those in with my day-to-day responsibilities of running a media and entertainment practice. So that's what I'm up to. That's kind of my journey to where I'm at career-wise now.
What's the favorite thing about your job?
Learning. So, the thing that differs about being a consultant, and this doesn't matter whether you're a management consultant or strategy consultant, such as myself, or if you're doing technology consulting or human capital consulting, organizational consulting, there's all these different threads of consulting that are out there. But the common thread, I think, for all of us that go into this profession is the desire to continuously learn. Because you will always learn. You always have to learn. You have to be ahead of your clients. You have to tell them something they don't know. That's why they're paying you. And so to do that, you always have to be learning. Now, nobody knows everything. And so I do have the benefit of having worked at so many companies on so many different issues that, you have that experience that you can bring together to identify very quickly what the root causes of issues are, what the options may be to solution for those issues. But you still have to learn nuances about that specific client. Maybe there's a difference about where they play competitively in the industry. You have to learn those things, within a week or two to be effective as a consultant. So if you really want to do that, you got to be a continuous learner. But for me, that's what really keeps me getting out of bed every day, is because I know when I go into that client, I'm going to come out there adding value and coming back with something that I didn't know when I woke up in the morning.
What's the most difficult part of your job?
The most difficult part of the job is, well, I say there's two things that are difficult. One is, I'll call it, managing clients. So keep in mind, you're a third party. You, as a consultant, you're getting called in some cases. It's not that the organization doesn't have an idea what they should do. It's that they can't agree on what they should do. So I'm between the board and management, or I'm between two business units, or two different executives. One says we should get rid of a business unit. The other thinks it's growing, and why should we even touch it? Leave me alone. So so there's a bit of a art of politics and relationship management that you have to have as a consultant. That's quite difficult, because what do you do if you're in the middle of this? And sometimes you're in the middle of these engagements where you're literally getting beat up on both sides. And you're literally just trying to tell people the truth as an honest broker. So that's the first part that's difficult. The second part is work-life balance, because it is a demanding job. I told you about some of the travel requirements. Again, it is not a 9-to-5 job. You're going to work on average, at least 60 hours a week on average, sometimes more, sometimes weekends. And so you have to be prepared for that. You might not be able to do everything with your family that you wanted because a client commitment has come up. But, the silver lining in all this is it's one of the highest paying professions out there. So if you can get the job, you're well compensated, even coming out of school. As an undergrad, I mean, you got undergrads coming out making more than their parents did when they retired. I mean, that's the differential in pay. So it's really a really incredible career, and the pay, kind of moves up very fast too as you move up. But at the same time, those challenges often lead people to question whether they want to do it long term or not. And that's why not everybody that comes in the door makes their way to partner. A lot of them elect to do other things for other reasons.
What are some of the tools that you find are indispensable to manage everything that you have to manage, your work-life balance? Um, I don't know, maybe you have a fantastic personal assistant. Maybe you use some software that's helping you manage everything. Do you have anything that you just find that it's extremely helpful?
Well, I will tell you, I live off my calendar. Literally, even today, I wake up, boom, talking to Erica on a Sunday. It tells me what to do. I mean, and because my weeks are 7-day weeks, I
Hmm.
sometimes take client calls. Like I have clients in uh Qatar. Sunday's a work day for them. Um, so I have to be some days get up on a Sunday morning and I'm having calls with them just like it's Monday. So I live by my calendar. My EA, my executive assistant, manages my calendar very well for me, but I manage a lot of it too because I literally have to schedule personal time sometimes. I have to block off, I'm going to do this on this day or this evening to make sure someone doesn't throw something on top of it. That's how busy I am. So having a calendar is probably the number one tool for me. I have tools that I use like to-do list to remind me of certain things I need to do and the dates I need to do them. I have flight apps, like I fly a lot, so I use an app called Flighty, which is an incredible app and keeps track of all my flights and where I'm going and connections and where in the airport I need to be because everything for me is orchestrated from the time I leave the door of my house or my office to the time I walk on and take a seat on that plane to the time I land and go to a client site or hotel. It's all orchestrated. And so I have these tools that allow me to do that. So that's what I use to kind of manage my life, if you want to call it. I will tell you, if you're trying to go into this career, though, you have to be very good with data and analytics.
Hmm.
So Excel, is still one of the foundational tools for that. But now people are using things like Alteryx and SQL and other types of data and analytics tools, Tableau. Um, you know, there's BI. There's all kinds of other tools out there that people are using to manage data and analytics because data and analytics is what powers this world and it's going to continue to power this world. And as we move more into AI, that's a whole nother layer of data analytics on things.
Oh yeah.
You have to be proficient on data analytics. You have to understand the basics of AI. And you have to be a good communicator in the sense that you have to be good with like PowerPoint in a lot of cases so that you can communicate your ideas, your thoughts, your recommendations to clients. So those are some of the things that I use to stay connected and in touch with my clients and communicate, the thinking and the rationale behind our recommendations.
So when you do have a little spare time, what do you like to do?
My biggest thing is watching movies in my home theater.
Mm,
And so again, I was engineer, audio engineer, but
hmm.
I've always been into audio, audio, quality video. So I built literally a stadium seat theater in my house,
Mm,
and I have a 152-inch Dolby Atmos theater. So if you're not familiar with Dolby Atmos, it's the same type of systems that you go to like at AMC theaters or Regal Cinema or any of those Cinemark. It's the same speakers behind you, in front of you, over your head. I got massive subwoofers. I got a 30-inch subwoofer that, literally shakes you if something explodes. And I have a 4K system.
mm,
So the quality, I literally get my movies directly from the studios. So I'm getting the same mezzanine
hmm.
files that the theaters get. So same quality. So I love watching movies and television. That's my number one thing. I say my second thing that I love to do is follow the financial markets, like investing, stocks, options, things like that. So I really like to watch what's happening with the markets, and it's just another way to, stay connected to business and at the same time, create wealth for yourself as well. So you gotta, in this environment, you gotta have your own wealth plan because nobody's going to give it to you later in life. It's
Right.
certainly looking more and more like that, the way we're going. So you got to create your own plan for wealth. So, you can be okay for the rest of your life and hopefully retire in a way where you're comfortable.
Hmm. That's good advice. Great advice. A little more advice, if you don't mind. What would you say to an 18-year-old who's about to graduate from high school and is trying to figure out where they want to go?
Well,
Um,
I would say a couple of things. I say number one, um, if it makes sense for you and excites you, go to college. You are going to find that a career in college is going to allow you to achieve greater earnings potential over time than a lot of other options. Not to say you can't be successful starting your own business or doing other things, but it really depends on what you want to live, how you want to live, and what you want in life. College gives you that pathway, the ability to get there. If you choose the right professions and do the right things academically. So I would say that's number one. I'd say number two, make sure that you're always hitting your weaknesses head on. So a lot of people, and even myself when I was younger, if let's say you weren't strong in math, you try to stay away from math. Or you're in college, you want to stay away from finance. You don't like that. Well, you're going to find that taking those strengths head on are often some of the ways that really can change the game for you and catapult you to the next level. I mean, I learned how to do economic modeling, stochastic modeling, which is a very advanced type of modeling. Um, I taught it at consulting firms. And again, I was a music guy that knew nothing about this. I took it on head on so I could get good at it. So um, find things that excite you, but also find things that you recognize where you're weak and hit those weaknesses head on and get that education to allow you to, um, be proficient in those areas. You got to keep upskilling because that's what it's about. The world's moving so fast in technology and data and analytics. You've got to have that in your DNA. You got to have that if you want to really be successful
mhm.
at some of the top of these companies these days. And and if you can get to top of a corporation or partner, whether it's management consulting or law or you know any of these professional services firms, it is not bad living. And so if you can find people that have those roles and see how they live, you'll see what I'm talking.
Mhm. Okay, just to go back to entertainment a little bit,
Sure.
what's your favorite genre of music and who are you listening to now?
Oh, that's a tough one. As a DJ, I came up under so many genres. I listen to so many things. Um, I probably still my number one hip hop and R&B. You know,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I listen to a lot of hip hop. And old school hip hop, trap, everything. I listen to a lot of hip hop still. Um, I listen to old and young R&B, if that's the term. So
Hmm.
going all the way back to Funkadelic, Parliament days, going to your 90s is interesting. I was just listening to some guy earlier today that somehow popped up in my car today, and I was like, oh, I hadn't heard this in a while. Listen to that, to neo soul, to some of the newer R&B artists. But I also listen, I'm gonna tell you, I listen to dance music too, electronic EDM, electronic dance music. I like a lot of that too. Um, so I do listen to that on occasion. And if, another fun fact for me, I still DJ a little bit. In fact, I
Really?
DJ'd for the past 3 years, I DJ'd. My firm Kearney has a Black History Month music event, and I DJ'd for the last 3 years. DJ'd it, and it was a versus. It's supposed to be like a versus. So it's me, the old school,
Okay.
some young DJ. So we kind of going back at it.
I
And
love it.
so I'm like the CEO of Goldman Sachs. He DJs too. He does EDM on his weekends, but I'm still, I still got a little bit of it in me. I ain't cutting it up like Johnny O still and Cochise as much, but I still got a little bit of it in me.
I love it. So, if you don't mind, can you point to what we can see and let us know what those awards are?
Oh wow. Let's see. This is just some of them. This is it's a gold award. So this was a group called Silk. If you remember Silk, they did Freak
Of
Me.
course. Yes.
I co-wrote and co-produced I Can Go Deep with others from Cleveland, by the way. So this was on their album, and this was a different award for the same song. It was on the Low Down Dirty Shame soundtrack. So it was the first single on a Low Down Dirty Shame. I think it was like top 10 R&B, Billboard, if I remember correctly. These are just other artists over here. You can't see all of that. Just Atlantic Star, other groups that I've worked with. Just award working with a lot of those groups. I don't know how much you can see it, but I'll turn a little bit there. And you can see I even got awards over there, which are like Ampex Golden Reel Awards from engineering. And then I got a Midwest Urban Music Award from Kermit Henderson from Dolls Rapid Creations.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
I don't know if you can see that one way down there. I was that plaque down there is I was recognized as one of the top corporate executives in America by Savoy Magazine this year.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, so I'm in the magazine, so that's another one of those
Right.
awards. This one here, this is MC Chill, Bust This Rhyme. So the first single was Bust This Rhyme, and then his album MC Story. These are just some of the records from that. And then let's see I can get this one over here. This one over there, not an award, but this is an original copy of my very first record with a group called Synergy I talked about earlier, Project 5.
Yeah.
And this was 1983, Worldwide Underground Classic in 1983. So
Wow.
you can see a little bit of the wall
Hmm.
here. This
That's
is
incredible.
the man cave here. So
This is why people from Cleveland are dope exists.
I'm
Because it's true.
yes, I'm so glad you're doing this, Erica, because it's great. Now I'm gonna have to pay it forward too, like Tim did. I got to figure out who I could tell you to talk to,
So
because
far, the men of Kappa Alpha Psi are winning.
achievement. Yo,
I
yo,
have
yo.
interviewed more Kappas than any other Greek organization. But shout out to Delta Sigma Theta.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Yes, I know y'all very well.
So you've traveled all around the world. What's your favorite place?
Oh, wow. Well, I have a vacation property down in the Virgin Islands, so I go there when I can. But I'll tell you, I love Europe. And there's different parts of Europe that I like for different reasons. And I've been to a lot of different parts of Europe, Italy, Hungary, Budapest. I mean, places where you don't see too many Black people go. I go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Paris, London. Um, each European country has a different feel to it, to me.
Sure. Yeah.
Another place I really enjoyed though too, Erica, I enjoyed Korea.
Hmm.
And it was
Okay.
different. Korea was so unique spending time. I worked for one of the large consumer electronics company over there, so I was over there quite a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was just very interesting. Seeing Korea. seeing the people, seeing what they were doing, a lot of the innovations that they were doing over there, and eventually making their way over here. That was a fun place. I mean, there have been so many interesting places I've been. Japan, China. I've been to China. Uh,
Mhm.
which is quite different. So I've done that. South Africa, I like that. Parts of South Africa, Johannesburg. Sandton was very, very good. I love Sandton. I also took my chances, some would say, and I went down into the Central Business District, the CBD. So if you've ever been to Joburg, CBD is a rough area. A lot of people tell you that, but they have places like Mambanang that are starting to spring out. And so I went into all parts of CBD, and I was watching how they're trying to bring the CBD back, parts of it, and very impressed with that.
Mm.
Um, Brazil, Rio, Sao Paulo. I mean, I know those places. I walk the streets. I go to Copacabana, like I live there, LeBlanc. So I just been all over, and so it's a tough question for me. Where's my favorite? Because um, I like seeing the world. Um, I just
Mhm.
uh, I just went to Alaska. I did Alaska cruise, and it was pretty cool.
Oh,
That's a place if you want to see it, you better go because the way this world's going, I don't know if it's going to be around. It's melting,
right.
but
We're all about to have the same weather in 20 years.
yeah, so if you can see the glaciers, I mean, very incredible to actually see a glacier up close and they're melting. They show you the pictures where it was, 10, 20 years ago, where it is today. And it's like it's moved back and it's
Hmm.
further back, in a matter of years. So, that's another thing I would tell an 18-year-old, going back to your question, see the world, get
Mhm.
outside of Cleveland, get
Mhm.
outside of Ohio, get outside of the US. There's so much more to see in this world. And don't just sit, and think that what you have right around you is all that there is to see in life.
Mhm. So, what are three things that you love about Cleveland?
Well, I tell you, I think number one, I like the people. You know, uh, Cleveland people are all always pretty chill. Um, even when I go to class reunions and stuff like that, folks from Shaker Heights, it's like we never left. 20, 30
Mhm.
years later, you know,
Yeah.
very chill. So people are always great. Number two, I think the cost of living is incredible. And if
Mhm.
you ever move out of Cleveland, I know you out there in a different place now, we know, because we aren't in Cleveland anymore. And
Yeah.
so when you go back to Cleveland rent and all the stuff in Cleveland, how much it costs, and I know people think it's expensive. Wait till you come outside of Cleveland. You ain't see nothing till you come outside of Cleveland. So cost of living, what you get for your money is
Mhm.
incredible in Cleveland
Yeah.
versus a lot of other parts of the U.S. And I think the third thing about Cleveland that I love is really the fact that the city gave me a lot of opportunities, especially as it relates to music. So it was a city that if I'd been doing the same thing in New York or some other cities, I don't know if I would have been as successful because I've been a small fish in a big pond. And
Right.
so Cleveland was always great, whether it was getting on the radio, two radio stations, owning a studio, working with, I don't know, 100 plus different R&B and hip hop groups over the years, working on, I don't know how many different uh, albums, tracks over the years, either as a songwriter, producer, engineer, mix engineer. Cleveland allowed me to achieve all that. So I can always say at the end of the day, I've had a wonderful life. I've done a lot of different things that people didn't get to do in their lives. And, I think Cleveland allowed me to do a lot of that.
That's great. What's next for you? Any goals out there for you that you still haven't achieved or accomplished? Anything on the horizon?
Yeah, I think for me, I've been doing this for a long time. One of the nice things about doing this is, it's put me in a position where I can retire early. I can retire now if I want. I don't have to work anymore if I don't want to. But, I continue to work because, again, I like what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. But, for me, um, trying to get to that next place in life where I can kind of, see a little bit more of the world, number one. Number two, maybe serve like on a corporate board, still stay connected to the business world in some capacity. And number three, I think I want to continue to push the envelope on my house as it comes to like AI and home automation and stuff like that. I've done some of
Okay.
that in my house. It's very automated. People come here and are amazed, but I think I can do more. I want it to where it just knows it's me and everything just works because it knows it's me. And that'll
Like
be
the super smart,
yeah.
intelligent house.
Yeah, well, I've got a smart house. It was featured in a magazine. Um, but I want to push that further. So
Wow. Well, um, those are all the questions that I have for you. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us today and tell us your story and give us some great advice.
yeah, well, Erica, thank you again for having me. And I'm so glad that you're doing this. And I'm so glad that the Kappas are leading on this. So Yoda, my brothers
Right?
out there continuing to show why Cleveland people from Cleveland are dope. And you know, thank you for the time, and to the audience, thank you for listening. And hopefully I've inspired you to do some big things and also be dope from Cleveland.
Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.